Oh, welcome back to another episode of the Evergreen Marketing Era for Women Entrepreneurs podcast. I'm your host, Andria Singletary, podcast strategist for women in business who want to get leads and clients from their podcast. Wow, I cannot believe that this is episode 299. It's so crazy to be hitting 300 episodes next week. I still can't believe I've been sticking with this podcast for so long. I can believe it, but it still just feels so surreal. But for this episode, I really wanted to speak to the business owner who is thinking about starting a podcast, but maybe, you've been going back and forth and wondering why you should start a podcast for your business, or even if it's really just worth your time and energy, if it will actually work for you. All those little hesitations that have kept you from hitting publish on your podcast. So if that is you, this episode is for you. So this is going to be kind of a bit of a lessons learned / reasons why you should start a podcast for your business episode. I started my podcast in October 2022 when my daughter was almost 6 months and my son was 2. And I have learned a lot in the last 3.5 years of podcasting. And so I'm going to be sharing a bit of, like I said, the lessons I've learned, my journey, as well as just some things for you to consider as you, decide whether or not podcasting is the best move for you. So let's start with why you should actually start a podcast for your business. So one thing I like to stress with podcasting is that it is not an overnight fix for lead generation or sales. So if you're having a lead gen and sales problem, starting a podcast is not going to fix that. If you aren't currently getting leads or signing clients, a podcast isn't going to help you with that. So if that is your reason for wanting to start a podcast, you're going to be disappointed. So here are the real reasons to start one for your business. 1, longevity in your marketing and sales. A podcast amplifies what you're already doing well and gives it longevity. Because it is searchable content, as long as the topics you're speaking on are evergreen, meaning that it's still relevant weeks, months, even years after you've published that content, people are going to find your content weeks, months, and years after you've published it. Another thing is that it gives you the freedom to step back from other marketing platforms when life demands more of you. Again, due to the evergreen nature of podcast content, if you need to step back in your marketing, so maybe you need to take a step back from, social media temporarily. Maybe you need to take a break from sending emails, whatever other marketing platforms you're using. If you need to take a break from it, you know that you can fall back on your podcast because it's going to still be working for you in the background. I've shared this in previous episodes, but when I took extended breaks from my podcast last year, 2025, I still had new people discovering my podcast. It continued to bring in new leads. It continued to nurture those leads and convert them into my offers, even when I wasn't even publishing new content. So not even publishing new episodes or showing up on social media. Even when I slowed down with my email marketing, my podcast was still working for me. It was still attracting, those right fit people for my offers. Another reason why you should start a podcast for your business is that it helps build your authority and strengthen your positioning and messaging. Now, there is only so much you can say and include in social media posts. I'm not trying to come for social media, but you do have things like character limits, and you have to be mindful of people's attention spans. With reels and stuff, they tell you, keep your reels shorter because people will lose interest easily and whatnot. And it makes sense because these are scrolling apps. People are just looking for quick dopamine hits, essentially. But podcasting allows you to go deeper. So deeper in your messaging, deeper in your positioning, and truly showcasing your authority, truly showcasing why you are that girl. And this isn't to say that you can't do it with social media, but you're able to communicate these things in less content than you do with social media. And so you can, clearly communicate these things in a 15, 20-minute episode, where with social media, because it is short form content, you have to create even more of that content to ensure that the right people are seeing that message and, hearing what you have to say, like really getting to know you and see why you are the authority that you are in this area. And again, it's like that evergreen aspect of podcasting really does work in your favor. Like, because like if you are creating content that is evergreen in nature, your content will continue to be pushed out as long as it's still relevant. And with social media, we know that your content, it goes off to die essentially after about 48 hours it's been live. And then with the stories, you only have those up for 24 hours. But with the long form content, so a podcast, it doesn't work like that. Like as long as the topics you're speaking on are still relevant, is still information that people can benefit from right now, it will continue to work for you. And another thing is that you literally have people locked in for a good 15 to 30 minutes. So there's so much more you can communicate in a single podcast episode, and you have their attention. That's one of the things I love about this type of content creation is that I can go deeper. I can share more of the things that I want to be able to say that, social media, it doesn't always come off as well, or I don't want to say come off as well. It doesn't always, like, people aren't always like hooked in immediately, or they're not going to look at like you if you are like, I'm a threads girly. So those multi posts, like I do my multi posts, but the thing is that people aren't going to be reading all of that because it's a scrolling app. But I know if I bring it over here to the podcast, I got you locked in for a good 15 to 30 minutes so I can say what I need to say and not worry about, those character limits or worrying about, ooh, this is too long or anything like that. Now, I already hinted at this, but you should start a podcast to amplify what you're already doing well. If you're consistently getting leads and clients through other marketing avenues, then your messaging, positioning, and offers are where they're supposed to be. And a podcast helps amplify that by getting your message and offers in front of more people. But let me stress this again. You need to be seeing these results already for this to actually work for you. If you're not, a podcast won't fix it. And I say this because I see people start a podcast thinking like, okay, this is going to be the thing that starts getting me clients and everything. And then they're disappointed. Now, you got to have that messaging and positioning already down. Like the clients I work with, they know, like, I can't help you with your messaging and positioning. However, you have that down. I can help you communicate that through your podcast content. So you need to have those things down. You need to have a validated offer in order for podcasting to actually work for you. And then the last reason to start a podcast is that a podcast attracts your highest quality leads. I say this a lot, but I am being so for real right now. A podcast is searchable content. That means that people who are actively searching for a solution are looking for your expertise. People who are actively searching for a solution or answers to their problems are often ready to invest compared to those who aren't actively searching. Your podcast helps you get in front of more of those people who are ready to get support with their problem, making them your highest quality leads. Like, if you think about it, if you're looking to learn how to do something, or you have this problem and you need help solving it, what do? You go search on Google. Maybe you'll even try to find a podcast. Like maybe you decided like, okay, I kind of want to DIY something. You will go find a podcast on that topic. But you also are like, hey, if somebody has a solution that is going to help me learn how to do this thing quicker, you're more than willing to invest. But it's more so about finding that right solution that's actually going to make sense for you, that you feel confident in investing in. And so that's the same thing your ideal clients are doing. They are actively searching for solutions. Now, they may not always have the language or the words for it. And so part of your job is to see what language they are using and incorporate that into your podcast content. So that way it's like, okay, she is talking about the very thing that I'm having a problem with. Let me go binge her podcast. But your podcast, like, it does attract your highest quality leads. That's why, like, I've seen for myself and for my clients too, we literally have people convert into our 4-figure plus offers directly from our podcast, because these are people who they already know they're ready to invest. It's just a matter of finding the right type of support. Okay, so now that you know why you should start a podcast and stop hesitating on starting a podcast, let's move on to lessons learned, specifically what I wish I knew before I recorded episode 1. So I started my podcast while I was a podcast producer. At that point, I think I had worked with about 4 or 5 clients. It was a combination of launch and management clients. And so I knew all the technical aspects. I even knew the strategy required to actually get leads and clients from my podcast. But I still decided I was going to talk about what I wanted to talk about and who I wanted to talk to. I decided to make my podcast all about beginner mom business owners, when in reality, beginner mom business owners were not my ideal client for my offers. They would not have been the best fit for starting a podcast. And I did the very thing I told my clients not to do. And while my content got much engagement, and I often heard from my listeners know how much they loved my episodes, it was not translating to leads or sales. And so one of the main lessons I learned when it comes to podcasting for your business is that you have to be intentional in every single aspect of your podcast. I'm talking about your podcast name, the topics you speak on, how you title your episodes, how you write your episode descriptions, the flow and structure of your episodes. Everything has to be intentional, or else your podcast won't do anything for you. And I recently kind of had this conversation with one of my accelerator clients, and this very thing clicked for her. She was like, I realize why I have not been seeing conversions from my podcast. I have been speaking to the wrong person, but also how I've been structuring my episodes, how I've been naming my episodes, even the language I've been using in my episodes. It was not moving people to action because it wasn't what people were resonating with. And so this is why I talk a lot about intentionality in podcasting. I know people like to be like, oh, I want to yap behind a microphone, yada, yada, yada. And that's cool, if you want to do that. But I'm sorry, as a business owner, you need to be intentional about podcasting. Like, if you have any inkling in your mind that you actually want to monetize this podcast, you actually want to get leads and clients from your podcast, you cannot just be like, oh, I'm going to just go, off of vibes and yapping and whatnot. It's not going to work. It's not. I don't care what the big celebrity entrepreneurs say and whatnot, how they tell you, oh yeah, just, get started. Da, 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 da. I don't care what they say. I don't care. Intentionality matters. Being clear on what your podcast goals are, what you actually want from this podcast, why you're starting this podcast, and then incorporating that into every little thing you do with your podcast, it matters. Because if not, you're just going to have a hobby that costs you time, energy, and possibly money, especially if you're outsourcing, you've bought this equipment and all of that. So you want to be intentional. Another lesson learned is that it takes time to find your voice, even as a business owner starting a podcast. I wish I knew this. While I did push through and kept going with my podcast, I know that if I was aware of this, I would have approached podcasting differently. And even just how I felt emotionally and everything about my podcast. But this can be hard to come to terms with when you are already established, your messaging is solid, and you consistently get clients. But it's true. Podcasting is a different medium, and it can, and most likely will, be awkward at the start. Like, I tell people all the time, your first probably 50 plus episodes are gonna make you cringe. when you, especially as you get further along and you go back and listen to those episodes, you can be like, ooh, I want to remove those. I want to delete those. Like, I don't want anybody to hear that. Keep them up. People love them, but it's going to be awkward, you know? And the key though is to stick with it. When I started my podcast, I was fully booked and serving clients. But if you listen to probably my first 100, 150 episodes, I was not fully confident. And a lot of those old episodes, they make me cringe. Like, when I see people download them, I'm just like, ooh, just know that that's not my best content. Like, you need to come over to the 200s. Like, that's where things really start picking up and sound good. But it's just part of the process. Now, I have found my voice and my podcasting style, and it feels good, but I had to put in the reps until it finally clicked. And so you will have to go through that awkward stage, kind of like we all go through puberty, which is super awkward, but we all have to do it, right? And it's so worth it when you do discover your voice. Like, you will eventually find your voice. You just have to keep at it. Okay, now my third lesson is having guests on your podcast is not the key to growing your podcast audience as a business owner. Now, let me just say this. There is nothing wrong with having guests, but there is a way to do it so it actually benefits you. Having guests, especially like big name guests, is a growth strategy for influencer and hobby podcasters, not business owners leveraging the platform to grow their business. Please listen to me on this. Like, your goal should not be to get some celebrity on your podcast when you're leveraging the platform for your business. I learned this after my first year of podcasting. I had recorded so many interviews, and I honestly regret it. One, I had a backlog of interviews that I had to get out, but also most of the guests did not actually promote the episode. On top of that, guest episodes are not about you and your expertise. They highlight the guest. And so while they benefited many of my guests, like I've had several guests come back and share how they've signed clients from their interview, it didn't do anything for me. Like, I didn't really see that much of a difference in my podcast audience growth. And like, especially when I compare it to now, where I primarily do solo episodes, I will have a guest here and there, but I have seen a huge difference. Like, this year, I've had my highest download months. I've seen the numbers go up in other areas of my podcast metrics and everything, where I'm seeing that listener retention, but also gaining more listeners each month. And this is without having a bunch of guests. Now, when I do have guests on the podcast, I do usually do one of the following things. I interview my clients about their experience working with me inside a specific offer, which are called case study episodes. I will do a podcast swap with an aligned guest, meaning that we truly do share a similar audience. I will do a mini series where the guest and I record a couple of episodes that are more like kind of like a panel discussion where we both highlight our expertise. And if I do have a guest outside of those scenarios, it's because they're speaking on a topic that I truly can't speak on, but is relevant to the overall theme and focus of the podcast and will be extremely beneficial for my audience. So for instance, when I had Andy Smiley on the podcast, there was a couple things going on. We were collaborating in that we were partnering for my offer, the Evergreen Marketing Accelerator, but also she's a Pinterest strategist for podcasters. And so there were things that she could speak on because that is her area of expertise. Later this month, I'm dropping an interview I recorded with a lawyer speaking on the legalities of podcasting. I can't speak on that. Like, I can give suggestions, but I'm not a licensed lawyer. Like, I can't speak on that. But she can, because that's something she actually supports her clients with. And so that's what I'm talking about there. Like, being very intentional in who I have on as a guest, and really making sure that it's truly aligned. Now, to wrap this episode up, I want to end with what it takes to start a podcast for your business. I see a lot of business owners get caught up on the tech and production. What microphone to use? Should I do a video podcast? What platform should I record on? How do I edit my episodes? And so on and so forth. While those things are important, they're not the most important thing. And I honestly don't care what anybody says. Like, I know people are talking about, well, you need to have the best quality audio and stuff like that. And yes, you do want to have clear audio where people can hear you. But if it's not perfect yet, you can improve that. I record my episodes on my phone. I have not had any complaints about the audio quality. And I'm more concerned that you actually have a strategy for your podcast than having a fancy studio setup. Now, if you want to know what tech to use, and I recommend tech that is not going to cost you an arm and a leg, I have an entire blog post on it that I will link in the show notes. And if you're stuck on whether or not to do video, go listen to episode 281. It will free you. It will free you of that whole video thing. But regarding recording and editing, there are a lot of great resources that can walk you through this. I'm actually going to be dropping a resource that supports you with all aspects of launching a podcast soon. So keep an ear out for that. But also you can hire support or outsource the aspects of production that you don't want to do. There are plenty of podcast producers, podcast editors, podcast launch strategists. And if you need help with finding one, reach out to me. I have a list of people that I can refer you to because I don't do launches or management anymore. I'm more so like I'm your girl for strategy. That's what I'm here for, to help you actually get leads and clients from your podcast. But more important than tech and production, you need to be crystal clear on your why and your podcast goals. So I've talked about this already in the episode, but you really need to that's what I want you to focus on first. Like, why are you creating this podcast? What will actually make this podcast a success for you? And I tell all of my clients to answer these questions first because the answers will determine how you approach your podcast. As I mentioned earlier in the episode, when you're podcasting for your business, the true key to success is intentionality. And so part of that intentionality is knowing why you are doing this thing. It can't just be that you like to yap or you have something you want to talk about. And I know, I've already said this, but business owners hate hearing that, especially, the multi-passionate, super creative business owners. But if you're going to do this, make it worth your time. There is a lot that goes into building and growing a business. And when you are a solopreneur or have a small team, you don't always have the capacity to do something for kicks and giggles. This is why we see so many people stop with their podcasts, because they decided they wanted to get behind a microphone and start yapping, but then they're not really seeing an ROI from it. And so it's why am I doing this? You know what I mean? Yes, I know we need to have our creative outlets and everything like that. But I think a big part of the problem too is that a lot of these business owners who start a podcast, they tell themselves that they want it to be this fun, creative outlet. But then they get into the thick of it, they don't have the motivation. Because they're getting messages like, oh, I love what you said about this. Well, what are they actually getting from it other than those, thank you for this episode, I really love that episode? What are they actually getting out of it? And as a business owner, our time is limited. Again, especially if you are a solopreneur or you have a small team, if you're a mom, if you have other responsibilities, like a family member you're caring for or different things like that, you don't really have that much extra time to pour into a podcast, especially planning the content. We say this all the time. What do I talk about? What do you want me to talk about? What kind of questions do you have? When you don't know why you're doing it, you're going to be that person asking people for all these ideas for what to actually talk about on your podcast because you don't have a vision for it. You don't have a purpose for it. You don't have any goals for it. And so, it just becomes one of these things where it's not a necessity. It's like, okay, if I have the time for it, I'll get to it. But when you connect it to your business, oh, now you got the time for it because now it's helping you grow your business. So I just share all that to say, like, I know I went on this little rant or whatever, but you need whatever you do to be part of your bottom line, which is to grow your business. Now, this isn't to say you can't have fun with your podcast. Like, I think sometimes when people hear me talk about podcasting this way, they think like, oh, well, you're trying to say I can't have fun with it. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Like, you hear me behind this microphone, I have a good time. Like, you could bring your vibe and your personality to your podcast and you can have fun with it because trust me, I have so much fun with my podcast. But every move I make with this podcast, I know that it's supporting my business. I know that it's doing the very thing that I need it to do. So before you start trying to buy the best podcast gear or create your, at-home recording studio, figure out your why and your goals so that this is truly worth your time. Okay? I'm glad we're on the same page. All right. So to answer the question in the episode title, why start a podcast for your business? Because it allows you to reach more of the people you are called to serve without having to post daily. And it gives you longevity in your content. And it's also great for repurposing. I love to repurpose a podcast episode. But it also calls in your highest quality leads because you're attracting the very people searching for your expertise. All right. It's worth it. Like, especially if you are someone who loves to create content in this format. So maybe you are the person who does, reels and stories and different things like that, or even kind of like that feel of being able to send like voice notes. Like if you're a Voxer girly or a Telegram girly, baby, podcasting is for you. Okay. Because essentially an audio only podcast is the same thing as sending messages in Voxer, sending your best friend, those long voice messages. And I'm thinking about because I do this with Kay all the time, but it's the platform for you. But all right, that is it for this episode. Next week, I'm dropping episode 300, and it is going to be a special one in celebration of hitting publish on 300 episodes. I'm actually going to be answering questions that people have specifically asked me about, podcasting for your business, my podcasting journey, and different things like that. I kind of wanted to do a different vibe, like not another lessons learned for that, marker there. Cause I know I believe I did something like that for like the 100th episode as well as the 200th episode. So I did the lessons learned in this one. But anyways, make sure you check out next week's episode. The questions that I got were really, really good, and I'm excited to share the episode with you. All right, I'll catch you in the next one.